It's 2026 and we're here for our first guest of the year, Ed Morris from Transform LogiQ. Ed Morris has been working in the AI and data space for an incredibly long time, exploring how to make sure businesses and individuals keep their data secure and safe. We're going to be diving into some really interesting topics around data security, data sovereignty, understanding how you and organizations can better protect themselves. So let's get into things.
Another challenge is legacy data, legacy systems that have been in place for 20, 30 years. Avoid things like data leakage or your IP getting out. You take an extra hour to make sure you get it right. That will save you days and tens, hundreds, millions of dollars. They haven't deleted data for 20 years, like customer data, financial data, health data, all of that can be used there essentially to blackmail you. The Australian government has released an AI roadmap of existing frameworks that they're going to utilise, but where they want AI to benefit, create opportunities for how do we adopt, how do we engage, and how do we bring companies and people. Like 80% of the challenge is people.
We go through the trough of disillusionment and then we go back to the enlightenment phase. On top of it. Yeah. We had those guys that were trying to share information. They're going from a world of Tableau and dashboards and reports, but they're in film, so they just jump straight to let's actually make an AI powered film about the results, right? And they could do that, right? But with us, it's well, if it's still in a world of charts and numbers and you still need to present that, it just doesn't have to be stuck in the box that Tableau, Power BI, Click are in. Coming from that world, I'm those guys are in a bit of trouble. If they don't try to do something in this space. So
it's also the, I mean, while there still are issues, the LLMs, particularly when they do the Python management, they don't need as structured data. It can figure things out a little bit. So if you're doing something where this is a throwaway website presentation where I know that I only need a structured, just a particular set of data, and it doesn't matter if things pivot. It's really powerful. You can't do that in Quickly and all these other tools. You still need to have data in a very structured and specific way. So you can't throw in some information and go, hey, give me some results in these tools. And that's where Tableau and all these other platforms, they fall down for people who need to move quickly with insights.
I think there's a use for them still, a set reports, but when it comes to...
That's why I talk about the quick space where it doesn't need structure. Obviously, structure.
Exactly,
Exactly what you're saying.
And it's developing so fast and
scary.
It is scary. And when we put our risk lens on, we're this is great. We really need to have this in your organization, but make sure that you disable download. Because it's really sensitive data. You can take pictures of screen. We can't protect against that, but the amount of really sensitive information that organizations put on these really cool dashboards, and they just forget, oh yeah, if that gets out.
Well, we should talk about that, the understanding that people need to have about where data sits, what information, I think we talked about it just before we started the workflow thing. So we'll get into that. But I guess the life cycle, better word, the data life cycle. And I think people are going to learn a lot more, especially those that are in the data space. But why don't we just get started with a bit more about your background? Where did it all...
Sure.
Where do you come from?
What do you do? You've got an awesome background.
Hail from?
From
West Wales, the valleys.
You've got an awesome background from products through to data, transformation, innovation. Why don't you talk us through that journey that you've been on over the many years of your experience?
I'm not that old, but
you talked about this,
right?
But
I am,
You welcomed me into the 40s.
Into the 40s club.
We're all in the 40s now.
We are.
Hey, cool.
Probably the oldest people on YouTube.
Next.
I thought you guys were much younger than me, so you're doing something right.
I'm close to mid-40s now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I remember being as a kid, I'm looking at 40s, I'm oh wow, that's so old. So, I feel young.
So different. 45 today is very different to a 45-year-old in the 80s. Or
you look
whatever.
back at films where some dude that won the lottery or something like that, and he's supposed to be 40 years old, but he's balding and he's got he looks like a granddad, but that was what 40s look like. It was it's a difference.
Yeah. I don't feel that's 45, 46 next year. I don't feel it. And I put it down to what we were talking about earlier, living in this country. I came here in my early 30s where it's so infectious, getting out early.
Yeah.
The sun's up and it's cooler in the morning, so that's the time to get out and about. but that the gym and the exercise and the, you know, positive attitude, it becomes like infection. It just kind of gets under your
I
skin.
love that.
Do you think your lifestyle changed coming here compared to what you were doing?
100%. Yeah, for sure.
Did you go like Wales straight to here or London?
No, so
many-
I mean, I grew up in Wales,
Yeah.
you know, in kind of like farming country,
Mhm.
and I went to school and, you know, college there. Went to university in Anglia, so at Chelmsford, and that's when I studied tech, advanced IT, before I went to university, but that was where my kind of tech and data before school, right? Yeah, exactly. And I did like a multimedia computing course, which was, you know, networking, programming, and design like early days of Photoshop, sound engineering, video editing. Yeah,
Oh, like all around?
yeah, it's like proper cakewalk stuff, which is like the original like audio editing or engineering. And so it was a very course which worked for me.
Very cool.
Who grew up in that sort of like early video days. He was doing a lot of working for big production houses in the early stages of when you were doing a lot of traditional rendering for animation, stuff like that.
Yeah.
When it took ages.
When it took ages, and he'd say you'd have literally the back room would be this huge housing of these network devices with all of the GPUs all hooked up, which were like not very powerful back then. So it was like a complete, like unbearably huge ecosystem of just technology trying to process 2 frames of a picture. And compared to that now, you can like people just have their own little computer with like maybe 2 GPUs connected or a separate system to pull it through, and it's like,
Oh, there's more power on your iPhone. Than what they have like
that guy's in the whole room.
New phones are computers now. Like the new Samsung that's come out is just the flip one. It's
the triple, the fold.
Yeah,
I
that
was waiting for that.
computer,
It's now properly out, and it folds out to like I think 10 inches display kind of thing.
Getting some average review. I'm just gonna fix your mic up.
Rod,
And it keeps folding in. I don't know why it's doing it. Let me try something.
So
I'm gonna
put it somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it here.
Yeah.
It's all right.
put it as an earring.
This is gonna be part of the experience.
Yes.
It is. It's getting crazy. The stuff that we're seeing now with video production and technology, like the fact that you can render some pretty
Incredibly quick.
now, and now you can do it with the cloud. That's great. Just dump AI over the top. Don't even need my computer.
When I did my degree in computing, it was around 2000, 2003, and you could, you know, set up all of your sound engineer or your projects, and you could like kind of render, and then you could go away and like make some coffee and then wait for it to come back. And it would actually take that amount of time and a lot of computing power, so you wouldn't lose.
And you would not be able to touch anything else on your computer as well.
Yeah,
like,
don't even bother going on the internet, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that course was really interesting because I've lots of different interests, and it kind of served my purpose because it was coding, which I did in like C++, JavaScript, HTML, built websites from scratch, which was great. But my design element and the managing of data kind of was a little bit more interesting to me. So I kind of got a little bit of the creative side, and I got a little bit of the structured data management side. And I graduated in 2003, which you will all remember has been a bit of a challenging time in the dot-com bubble.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to find any work.
Just post the burst.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. And, you know, so did odd jobs to kind of fill the gaps and things, and programming jobs, and data service, kind of like
it was an interesting time.
Updating records and things and managing records.
Wow.
They did back in the day.
I remember.
That's the equivalent of a Macca's job if you've only done data.
From a data perspective.
I did, I worked in Macca's and stuff for a bit, you know, like it's that sort of thing where people had that.
Worked in a bar for like a year after graduating while doing the odd jobs. Like it's just you do what you need to do.
You do what you need to do, but you've still got the passion and stuff there for the bigger purpose.
Exactly. I remember when just post the crash, and then also even when the GFC hit, and I had my first job was at eBay/Gumtree. And it was one of those weird businesses where they benefited more from the crash and the boom because it brought down so many tech companies and digital services that were more
thin them out, right?
Yeah, it was more focused on, you know, like business and corporate, and it didn't focus on that affordable consumer buying, which eBay and
Exactly, yeah.
as he could have came in.
Yeah.
This is pre-Amazon and all those big
Can we
players.
just talk about that just a very little bit, because
yeah.
what's interesting is that people complain about this AI bubble, as we hear all about it and stuff. The internet, it's going to be like the dot-com bubble. So it's like the dot-com bubble, sure, but like everything, bubbles are what happens every cycle. When there's new tech, there's overinvestment, it brings a lot of people in, and then we figure out what works, what doesn't, and then we go through the trough of disillusionment, and then we go back to the enlightenment phase, which is not as high as the peak, this Gartner hype cycle waves, but we've still got the internet. We've got .com, we've got all these things that have happened because we did that. So it's so funny. What's the purpose of complaining? Like when people go, oh, it's good, the .com and everything's going to fail. Well, no, not everything fails. There are learnings that we have from this, and it's arguable that if we didn't push the boundaries, we wouldn't know where those boundaries are.
100%.
We have to break through. So
that's innovation, really. Like in a nutshell. Like you've got to experiment, you've got to try, got to fail, learn, move on. And Jeff Bezos is asked that question a lot of like, how does this compare to the .com? And he said, the difference of the companies that survived and the ones that didn't is that the ones that survived had a business plan. They had a strategy, 5+ years. There's going to be so many different companies have great ideas, and they've got an incredible product, but they're not thinking like further than next year. They're just trying to build it up and maybe sell it, but they haven't like thought further down the path. And to bring in the risk and the governance kind of element, they haven't mitigated their risk. Build your business plan, understand the risks, and most importantly, work out mitigation strategies so you avoid the known pitfalls, and then have that governance framework moving forward. Avoid things like data leakage or your IP getting out. To get literate on your with your staff, so they know how AI works and what the pitfalls are. And then 3, just think about the future, where you want to get to, because it's all about goals and objectives. But know what your principles and values are to start with.
There are 2 things that I see here in answering your question as well. There's the first one is, with all of these big innovations and market disruptors, there's always people going to be saying it's doom and gloom and the end of the world.
They get airtime. They get
100%. It's
true.
I look when 5G came out, like it's the same thing. It's good. It's killing us.
Wait, that is killing us though.
Oh, okay, cool.
I'm just joking.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna next week we'll have a different co-host.
And the world is
oblong.
Kind of true. So it's been hit a couple of times.
The other side of it is, with what is happening in the market, things are moving so rapid, that's so fast, that even the people with experience are finding hard to build plans beyond a year, because after, just look at what's happened even in, with the basic LLMs. Like, we were chatting with someone yesterday and they were saying, every time I used it, I was getting some really bad data outcomes through the information I was trying to get out of the LLM, trying to be vague in what was going on. But, and then suddenly it surfaced that particular person actually hadn't used the product now in the last 6 months, and we're just like, whoa, like that's like 20 years difference in traditional business sense in terms of what's happened to the particular product. Like, try it again, you're going to experience something.
No, I can't imagine like
it's happening for businesses on that scale, right?
100%. Like, I can't imagine the challenges of how quickly things change with co-founders, young CEOs, building up great ideas. They've got great ideas, right? And it's developing it. The clients that I work with, they're established businesses, but they're by no means not affected by this AI challenge. But they have another challenge, is legacy. Legacy data, legacy systems that have been in place for 20, 30 years. They
run the country, basically.
Exactly. And you change something here, you do an update or a bug fix here, something breaks over here and you need to fix that. And so doing an overhaul is almost unheard of. Working for, institutional banks, State Street, HSBC in my past, their systems span global, global markets, old systems, some of
COBOL.
Correct, COBOL is one of them. But they all serve their own like individual purpose. you have your fund administration platform, you have your custody platform, you have your FX platform, and they don't inherently kind of talk to each other. They want to, because the settlement process is extremely long and arduous. Like from a trader putting a trade in, the amount of steps and operations and settlement and reports and, getting FX rates from, market data, like FEX or any market data provider, Bloomberg. You can cut that out. That was a free plug.
We are very happy to like shout out to our
100%.
friends here at FEX who
100%.
provide us the studio space, and there's a lot of cool things that they do apart from having
It's an awesome space. Awesome space.
In fact, this used to be CNBC's headquarters here.
That's it.
So they filmed just in that corner there.
No way.
Basically,
You see the old cameras from the 90s back there.
Oh my
they
gosh,
just
yeah.
haven't thrown them out. It's more of a ornament in the
Channel
room now.
7.
Yeah, exactly.
we'll do a behind the scenes kind of 5-minute show or something like that for the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, Well, it's a great space, and I love like the kind of like, you can cut this bit out. It reminds me of like Hunger Games.
Watching it, there's a little big stage presence.
Yeah.
Everyone looking down, going, "Ha ha!" They got him that time.
They've cleaned up the blood well,
Yeah, it is.
so it's okay.
These new floorings went this week.
It's PG-13.
Yeah. I'll give you some warning when you want to cut it out, make your editing a bit easier.
That's for him.
You're leaving this in. That's something. So HSBC, and talk about the journey that you went on from there that led into where you are now.
Yeah, so I mean, it kind of has to go back to kind of my university days. So I told you I was doing like data gigs, data service management gigs.
Yeah.
I worked for a company called IFDS, which is like a financial data services. Unit registry, which is basically a transfer agency, fund management.
Yep.
It's about records, it's about transactions, it's about settlement, and all of the data that is captured. Back in those days, it was very simple like systems. You have your standard structured database with UIs built on top of it, and the administration staff or the back office staff would be able to look at all of the correspondence and update records and put in trades and trailer commissions and all of that, and that would go through a settlement period. I through that role, I had a secondment or a project in Luxembourg in Central Europe with State Street Bank, and that was kind of the proper beginning of my investment management operation journey, and that was servicing another fund management clients and their funds. So they brought it over to State Street, and I was part of that project team that went over to Luxembourg, and we were there for like 6 months, like constantly settling trades, putting in all of the commissions, the back end notes to the trades, and it was actually quite an impressive system back in those days, because the instructions would come through from the financial advisors or from the asset managers by fax, old school. But honestly, it's like dot matrix printers. It was outrageous. But State Street built a system that could intercept fax data, translate it into PDFs, and
Wow.
and then we would put it in manually, and then later on I worked on projects to optimize that into automated OCR, the original or the start of optical scanning,
Which is still being used today, because I will say that having worked with a lot of financial markets firms and also having a background in that, but more on the research side, but still being exposed to it. There is so much of global finance, and I'm talking about just traditional commercial banking, but the institutional investment banking side. How much money flows through that is run on, we joke about spreadsheets and old systems, but it literally is, and
billions a day.
Lots of manual processes too. So automating that back then without generative AI was always this thing. How do you make it more accurate? How do you make it faster? And doing it, this constant game, and we'll do the same. And you guys, you know, we'll talk about the work that you're doing now, but what people are doing right now will become, it's all this experimental stuff and it's automating, it's great. And then we'll have other things that we're doing in back office type functions that will be in 5 years time. Well, how do we automate that?
Yeah.
It's this constant cycle, isn't it?
It's so true. And it's a journey as well, because like when I started my investment management career, it was T plus 3. So the settlement period was,
Explain for
was 3 days.
Yeah, what's it like? What is T plus 2, T plus 3, T, you know,
Yeah.
we talk about T plus 0 now.
Yeah.
What does that all mean in layman's
Well,
terms?
it's essentially trade date. So as soon as from trade date 0, it takes 3 days for that trade to settle. But there's a number of things that need to happen. The trade instruction comes through, interpretation, execution of that trade in the administration systems. It has to be validated when there's it's on a security that's not in the system, that has to be set up.
Yeah.
So you have to get the kind of like the makeup or the structure of that fund or stock, usually from the likes of Bloomberg, you know, or ICE, and you bring that security data in, and then you need to get the price, so you have to bring in the market data for that, and only then that's when the trade can get settled. Depending on the makeup of the fund, it could be a bond with something called pull factors, and so it depends on the percentage of the yield. I won't bore you with it. There's so much that goes into it, but only when it gets to that kind of like trade execution processing element, it can be settled, and then it needs to go, you know, to the institution and that holds the funds and holds the funds, the cash and the fund itself, and then it has to be settled via third parties.
That all went over my head.
So it's okay. Just know that it's a system that works.
Yeah,
It's a system that
automatically works, and that's just day 0.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's so many more steps, Chris.
Yeah.
Beyond that, and that's assuming that things go right.
Yeah.
If things go wrong,
Yeah.
it's like, well, shit.
And that's the pain that I kind of went through in that stage of my career.
Right.
Yeah. Shall I start again, or
No, you can keep going.
Yeah, that's the pain that I went through in my career, because we were going from T plus 3 to what is T plus 1 now, but the systems were breaking, or we had to do something manually. So we were monitoring every single trade and transaction that came through as part of the investment operations team. And it's like, right, this price hasn't come through. We need to figure it out manually. Get onto Thomson Reuters or Bloomberg, and it's like, we need it. It's like, okay, put it through. And yeah, it's quite time sensitive, because if you don't get that trade settled by T plus 3, the trade will default, the bond will default, the owner of the shares will have to default, potentially get a worse price the next day, or a better price, but you're contractually obliged to settle the trade with T plus 3. So I learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
You know, pressure, kind of calmness under pressure, precision.
Okay.
You know, and efficiency. Like it's baptism of fire. Like it was sometimes we had to settle trades on the same day in Luxembourg. So that meant we couldn't wait until the next day. So 15+ hour days sometimes that we had to.
And not the technology that you have now.
No.
But you said baptism by fire there. You know, there's that other saying,
in the
it's
trenches,
like drinking. There's that like it's when there's so much information coming out, it's like drinking from a fire hose. You've heard that, right?
Yeah, I've heard.
It needs to be a combination of that.
Yeah.
You have the baptism by fire, but it's okay because we're going to make you drink from a fire hose.
Yeah.
And you're going to have the water to.
Yeah.
cleanse it out. So
It's like, it's interesting. So when we were putting together sort of your background and trying to understand the work that you've done, one of the terms.
This is your life.
This is like, one of the terms that came up is like your experience is like the plumbing of all this of the administration.
Oh, so true. So
It's like, so what you've just said now makes that word that just kept coming out makes so much more sense. Essentially, you are like
Plumbers are so important.
the foundations and like
Yeah.
the pipeways between everything that
It is, yeah. Other people call it bogs and drains as well, because you know, above the surface you don't see what's going on.
Yeah.
You just trust everything's working.
Yep.
And
I got my shit.
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I got my
Meanwhile,
prize.
there's a poor you on the back going,
Yeah.
oh, we did it. Oh my God.
yeah.
Never.
Plugging holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A submarine.
Make it go through, guys. Come on.
Yeah, we can do it. I mean, it is. I mean, you kind of you build a bond like with your team, and you trust in the team, and you have to work together. And there is that ethos, and it brings a brilliant work ethic. So that was my kind of like first professional experience, and it helped me for sure. Yeah, later on in my career.
What did it help to teach you about like sort of risk and data discipline in that space, like leading it to where you ended up?
Yeah, I think it's knowing the risk before you go in, but getting it right first time. You know, not jumping when you don't have to. I know I said it's like time pressure, but you do have a certain amount of time to get the trade settled.
Yeah.
But it's, if you take an extra hour to make sure you get it right, that will save you days and tens, hundreds, millions of dollars to the company down the path. So yeah, it's a fine balance, but risk management, I mean, you know, I think in every business they have a form of risk management. Risk appetite is a common criteria. In finance, it's a very low appetite.
Very, very low.
You know, it's financial risk. There's non-financial risk as well in terms of like processing and tech, but in financial risk, it's little to zero. Like you can't afford to have something go through that's incorrect, wrong price, digit in the wrong place. Honestly, it happens.
I think this is like
It happened here where we were just trying to give out all the money to people. It's like, oh yeah, we did the calculation. We had one extra zero there accidentally. Actually, you don't have any cash left.
And it's standardization as well, because in like Europe, they don't use the comma, they use like the dot and then the comma for the decimal point.
Yeah.
So getting that the wrong way around happens a lot. So it's about standardization of data. Like you need to know the standard. Yeah, exactly.
This kind of speaks to why it's not so straightforward. And I'm not talking just AI systems. We've done stuff in the blockchain space, still do, and you know there's quantum computing that's rearing its face into things as it starts to you know get better at what it's trying to do and be useful. But with all of those, any new system, it's not just, hey, there's a bad process, let's make it better. It's like, yeah, it's not a bad process, but it's something that works, it's relied upon. There's this much importance to it that you can't just bring in something new. We can't just strip out, like there's a lot of, whether it's health, finance, legal systems even, like it's not so straightforward. And people need to kind of realize this, because we've got a lot of builders that watch this, people in the startup space. It's not saying don't make changes. We've always got to improve.
Exactly.
But you've just got to realize that there is a massive, not just sunk cost, but the importance of how, you know, global finance, in this case, what you're doing works. It's not so straightforward to just make these changes. It might be more incremental changes.
Yeah.
It's not a big overhaul all in one go.
Yeah, exactly. And having oversight of the risk involved, and you know, taking the time to, you know, structure your frameworks, your policies, and putting them into action. It's just like anything, you know, plan your dive your plan. To use a scuba diver term, like it's exactly that. But what I like to say is, you know, as simple as short-term pain, long-term gain. You know, I think it comes from a movie, but it's true. You know,
We were talking about this yesterday when businesses who are trying to implement AI strategies and they're like, the data part is just too hard, we can't do it. It's like, but you're going to reap so many more benefits later. Like, put in the hard yards now, get it into a clean up structured format, and then you can literally do everything with.
Exactly. And
6-12 months time.
You can talk about AI governance being an accelerator rather than a handbrake, because it's doing the short-term, you know, due diligence, but that can help you accelerate faster and with more confidence.
Yeah,
exactly. So you can experiment a lot more, and you're confident that things won't break.
Look at Formula One cars and stuff. If they would just all accelerate, no braking in high class engineered braking system, well, not only would they be dead, that they would probably just go around a lot slower. It's because they've got great ability to have that braking system. So I'm just saying, like, data governance and all this like CAP stuff is a super important part of where you could get to, and as we said yesterday.
So I'll add to it. It's also the innovation side, like you were touching on. It's they are a trial and error industry. Like they're scientists who build these things, and they test it, learn and fail, and test it, learn and fail.
Yeah.
Which is an excellent transition into one of the things that we spoke about, which is that the buzzwords around transformation and versus AI. And transformation kind of has been around for a while. It was a huge buzzword back in 2017, 16 or something, when it became this thing that everyone had to do.
Yeah.
And I know everyone's been doing it for a while, but that was like the word at the time.
Absolutely.
Every agency and consultancy was like transformation business, transformation.
Yeah.
Even now you still hear it, you're just like, guys, move on. But one of the biggest issues that it was having was, one, not putting in the effort up front. Not having that fail fast, learn, move on mentality. And inevitably you saw transformations over and over and over again and failing. And AI, as it is the buzzword now, we're sort of seeing similar trends at the moment. Around that strategic side where they're implementing these and they're failing. What's your experience in that sort of coming from transformation, especially with big data, moving into that in the AI space? How are you seeing the two linking together?
I mean, transformation, yes, you're right. It's a buzzword. It's been around for a while. I don't think it's a flavor of the month. It's what companies need to do.
100%.
Yeah, and change management is taking the organization along with the journey, and transformation is changing how they do everything. And I think it's true for medium enterprise, because as I was talking about before, they can't change quickly. They have legacy data, they have legacy technology, and they do need to transform, but they need to think about it strategically. Safely, of course, but strategically. Looking at where their main challenges are, where their main risks are, but also just properly sitting down and understanding where all of their data is.
Mapping it out and stuff.
Mapping it out, understanding the data lifecycle. When it first comes into the ecosystem or their systems, how they're collecting data, personal identifiable information, customer onboarding, right?
How should they go about mapping that out? Because I've found that a lot of businesses, they will just end up partnering with like a Salesforce or a SAP to just build up their data systems without proper, I want to say proper consideration, but without proper education and learning around how those systems are set up and the impact it does have on them. Should they be doing it in their sense?
I mean, it's understanding your data lifecycle, because Salesforce, brilliant CRM tools and AI tools that they're bringing out. But if the system doesn't know where the data is, or if it's just moving it from one place to the other and it's processing it, and there's no policy and there's no framework giving the guidance of how to use the data, and most importantly the intent of that data, then they can't see their full landscape. So they could be just duplicating data, and holding on to data. This is a challenge we're going through with one of our clients. They haven't deleted data for 20 years. Because they don't know if they should be retaining it indefinitely, or they don't know if they should be disposing it. So there's something in the field called retention and disposal schedules, and that basically gives the organization a schedule of the data that they have once they've identified it and discovered it, and what type of data. So I'm talking like customer data, financial data, health data, everything around the customer. How long they should hold on to it, and when they can get rid of it. It's like financial data, the standard is 7 years, exactly. If your client's not on the books, you don't need it. But even things as innocuous as CVs, it's got all clients' personal information, and if your intent is to use it later down the track, you go in for an interview, you give your CV to them, and they hold it indefinitely. They don't need it. You might come back for a second interview, 6 months later, but really there's no need to hold on to that type of information. Health information is a real worry
A lot of
because
PII.
it's a lot of PII, and there's been a lot of data breaches with medical related insurance companies and private hospitals, and it has your symptoms, your prognosis, your situation, your health situation, and if that's breached, and hackers get hold of that, that can be used, essentially to blackmail you. That information you don't want to get out.
AI is like a very important kind of subject, but on the topic of data, and look, there's already been experiments more on the financial side of things rather than health, but using blockchain to, blockchain is great for the smart contracts that they call it, basically programs that can automate how data moves around and information flows. But then they've also got cryptography elements on top of it that allow something called a zero knowledge proof, and there's various other ways of doing this, but allow you to share information about someone, something, but without revealing everything. Either you can just say this is true or false, like a license. Are they over 18, New South Wales, current license? You can provide a true or false on something like that if it's a digital ID. And then if you needed to share, you can share only certain things, what they call selective disclosure. And it's arguable, and we haven't really brought anyone on this topic yet, but there's going to be a world where blockchain and AI actually come together to in a perfect marriage. Blockchain for the security of data and AI for the smarts, the brains. Do you see anything like that in the work that you're doing?
I mean, we work on cryptography. It's part of our kind of recommendations, because when we go on a project, we look at absolutely everything. It's one, how to manage your data and firstly discover it and identify what sensitive information you have. But once you've got to that point, it was like, how do you secure it? I think information tokenization, is going to be a real game changer for organizations, and that secure connections from point A to point B, same in finance as well, is going to cut out a lot of middlemen, but there's still a security issue of that key. How do you secure that key or the wallet? So you have to have a lot of like access levels, RBAC systems, which is role-based access controls, and it's as simple as that, knowing where your data is and ensuring that it's locked down.
Yeah, because there are countries like Estonia, for example, they've successfully rolled out that kind of thing when it comes to their identifiers. We have our TFNs. America has their
Something.
What do they use?
I forget. We're not in America.
Whatever tax number is.
Social security
number. That's it.
Yeah.
But like it's all Web 2 based, old school security. It doesn't allow you to share set sums of information, whereas in Estonia they have all that. It's like you have an ID that you can then control how you give out what information and who to. I mean, the breakdown with that stuff though is the key is one thing. Like, how do you control that key? There are things you can do for like secondary layers of security, but then the still issue remains that once you give that information, like I approve you to have this data that goes into the medical system at the hospital. Then what do they do with it? Because the key lock is now broken. That data is now with someone. Has access. That means it's still accessible. And like you can do stuff with it to make it secure, but those businesses aren't in the mindset of doing that properly. They're busy with other things, and they're dealing with patients and thinking about how many of them, unfortunately, having to worry about how many nurses are on staff, because that's an issue with the staffing, and that stuff gets fallen short. Right?
Exactly, and it gets taken out of the computer systems as well, because you're writing down notes and prognoses, and the clipboard at the end of your bed, has all your personal details on as well. If you're not in a private room, people can come and see it. There's a lot of potential breaches of privacy. I feel like it's a real challenge, but one of our clients, like an analogy, private hospital, they have a number of medical pieces of equipment, essentially IoT systems, heart rate monitor and things. All of the patient's details are recorded on that system. that's connected to a network. There's been a case, I think it was in the US, where someone hacked into a hot monitor.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, didn't have the firmware updated, and can just like download that information
Off.
yeah
You need to watch.
I mean it's a little bit Terminator,
Yeah.
but it can happen.
The DEF CON, which is a big security kind of conference type thing. DEF CON, not the music one.
I was gonna say, isn't that like it's a DOS
yeah.
server? My thing today is just fixing your mic up. It's the cable. Keep going.
I'm not moving.
No, it's not you. It's the cable of the shit.
So DEF CON, the security conference type thing, where it's very dangerous to bring in your normal phone because it will guarantee you get hacked and stuff. Hackers conference, right? But anyway, my point is that when you watch some of the shows that those guys have as shows or like talks that they do put out on YouTube, you realize just how much more systems out there are. You mentioned the heart monitoring devices and stuff, but there's also like security cameras. There's a lot of standardization around security cameras that surround cities, and people being able to hack into those and just be able to get a whole lot of footage that should not be actually available. So there's all of these vulnerabilities out there, and we can't plug all of them, right now. But we have to do something. We have to do something about the tech. And so this is the point. Like, people go, well, why do we need this? Why do we need that? And it's like, well, because if you don't, it's anarchist. It's a crazy world where anyone can get, not anyone, but bad actors have easy access to things, and you're just not protected. So think about this as a protection sort of thing. This is why we need to work on the data. It's not just the opportunity side, but it's the massive risk out there if we don't.
Exactly. Yeah. And privacy is a big thing. And there was a conference that I went to earlier in the week, run by IAP, so it's International Association of Privacy Professionals, and the privacy commissioners from Australia and New Zealand were on there, and they were talking about the increased importance on citizens' privacy, basically the right to be left alone, because being recorded in public, it's obviously not against the law, but harassment can be, and it's a grey line, and it can be very very close. But Bunnings and Kmart, they're in have challenges at the moment because they've been recording customers on their cameras, as most businesses do, but they've been using the recordings for AI facial recognition under the responsibility of security.
This is why I can't go back to Bunnings.
But they didn't disclose the intent of the information they were using, and this is what's key with privacy. You have your privacy statement and your policy, and every time you go onto a website or sign a form, you click the I consent to my information being used.
Which
creates. Well, this is the challenge, and this is people like myself, as part of our Transform Logic work, we do like reviews of privacy and give recommendations. But the key thing about those policies is yes, you're collecting information and it's being identified as personally identifiable, and it's going into the data life cycle that needs to be securely stored. But it's the intent of the usage of that information. So you can collect it as long as it's secure, great. But what are you going to use it for? And organizations have to disclose why they're collecting it, and what they're going to use it for. So we've all heard of GDPR.
The GDPR.
Any personal information collected by a European company or of a EU citizen, doesn't matter if you're outside of in Australia, if you have a business and you've got EU citizen information, you have to abide by the GDPR, and you have to disclose. And Australian organizations
can hold the data for a certain amount of time. You can only capture data in a certain way. There's like a lot of really
and there's a lot of regulation and requirements to abide by. But for Australian companies, we go into our clients and go, do you have any EU citizens data? He said, yes, but we abide by it. And it's like, there is a clause of the right to be forgotten in the EU. So a EU citizen can effectively contact your company and say, I want to be forgotten, delete all of my information, and companies don't know where all that data is. So we talk about data minimization. If you don't need the data, you get rid of it. If you don't have personal information, you can't get breached. Simple, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we talk about data minimizations, like really, do you need this information? Is it serving any
Consolidation
purpose?
also be? Because again, multiple platforms, information scattered all over the place.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that if you need to find it, you can find it, and
Yeah.
you only have to delete it from that one source rather than...
Exactly. And, the big banks, the big four, are having this challenge at the moment, where, customers want their information to be deleted. And this is where this kind of legacy tech is kind of dragging innovation and progress. That they can delete it from, the marketing platforms, the sales and marketing platforms, reasonably easy. But to delete it in all systems, the back-end systems, it's like a 3+ month project to find all of it, right? Find John Smith in every system. He's executed trades, he's got a business account, he's got a retail account. Okay, that's like 17 different systems we're going to have to go through to delete it. There are, thankfully, great technology out there. So essentially data discovery technology, Big ID, Cyera has a brilliant DSPM, the data security posture management system, where you plug it in, and I'm simplifying. It's not this easy. But you're plugging a platform into your organization systems, and it scans the whole data landscape and identifies the type of data, the domain, and also identifies if it is sensitive, if it's highly restricted, if it's in the public domain, but crucially marks it against privacy policies, regulations on data management, ISO standards, and kind of raises the red flag. So effectively, once you've scanned all of your data landscapes and all of your systems, you can delete personal information from all of your systems. It's like, find me John Smith. It will take the first name and the last name and scour all of your systems and databases, and said, right, effectively you can delete it from the system. So yeah, again, oversimplifying it, but it's
The trending topic, the trending thing there is data. Now, obviously setting it up in a way that allows you to correctly implement these processes, these securities, these your ways of working and discovering information. Even if you look at it from a marketing and from a strategy perspective, having data structured in a certain way benefits those business units so much, from future thinking, from making decisions, all that type of stuff. Obviously, one of the big things we hear about when it comes to AI is your data ready? Are you ready to implement AI? Because do you have it structured properly, or do you even have data at all to make any benefit or change within your organization?
It's kind of where we come in as well, because
How is that?
as I said, I'm oversimplifying it, but if you got 20 years of legacy data, you plug the system in and it goes, like, what's sensitive? Like, you tell me, because you need to have like data classification. So you need to go through all of your data domains and go, okay, anything that's financially related, and we're talking this is report this.
What are the risks associated? Like, if I'm implementing AI in my business, like, what is the risk of me not having this stuff in place?
In terms of,
I want to put an AI tool over the top of my data to start, predictive modeling or making assumptions or summarizing, or like, what's the risk if I don't have these structures and securities in place?
I would say that there's a few. One is obviously the breaching of it. At the moment, with AI tools, Gen AI, that information can be used. Whatever you input can be used for training the model. It potentially can be re-engineered from outside your organization. So that's one first tip of ensure that your ChatGPT and Copilot has the switch that says don't train LLM any training models. Yeah,
Exactly.
But honestly, it's a bit of an unknown. Like, these tools and systems, they're automated decision making. processes, right? So we can't be 100% certain that the information is not leaving the organization, and when we talk about intellectual property, strategies, pricing models, that type of information get out, it would, sink a company.
It's
That's a secret sauce.
There's in Australia, especially dealing with more regulated entities, the vectors of where information can get out, especially with AI systems that are built with retrieval augmented generation, the ability to talk to documents, basically RAG. It's where the documents sit, the notes, the documents and all that. That's one, that's the database side of things. But then there's also the consideration around the AI calls. So the AI call to actually, and I won't get too technical, but there's two parts. You have the completions, which they call chat completions. Then you've got the embeddings. The embeddings is where you turn documents into numbers so that we can talk with it.
Yeah.
And there is sometimes a lack of consideration of where's the embeddings model? Oh, you're using it, sending it overseas, where you're technically sending data overseas, even if it's just to get the numbers. And the chat completions, sure, your documents sit here on your computer or they sit in your servers here in Australia. But if you're using OpenAI, it's not got servers here unless you're doing it through Microsoft or unless you're using a Google model or an Amazon model that is specifically here. You're effectively sending stuff overseas. So these data, the life cycle needs to include what about the AI components of the life cycle?
And
Exactly.
some of the documents, they're not even referencing directly into the documents. Some people don't even realize that when they upload them, it might be breaking out the information into its own database.
Exactly.
And then
What do you mean? So
like you would, you might chunk the data sets within the PDF into a database that the AI then reads directly off rather than off of the document to help, context windows and stuff like that.
Because if the system can interpret and, change it from the ones and zeros back into information, ones and zeros, you think of data, and information is, human readable information. Yeah, you don't know for sure that information hasn't left your organization or the country.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably a good time to talk about the EU AI Act.
yeah.
I think everybody's talking about it, and Australia, New Zealand, very much influenced by it, and the Australian recently, I think it was the Trade Department. Start again. Recently the Australian government Trade Department or Industry Department has released an AI roadmap of the existing frameworks that they're going to utilize, but where they want AI to benefit, create opportunities for Australian businesses.
This is government?
This is government, yeah. It's just come out in the last couple of days. I think it was like Monday or Tuesday.
Australia's AI policy, basically.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. Create opportunities for Australian businesses. They want it to benefit Australian citizens, but crucially, they want to make it safe. So that's great. That's a roadmap that I think the majority of countries are planning. It fell short in a couple of areas in terms of privacy, for example. There's no framework
or too much
risk-wise, management, security of personal information, and especially around children as well. It's like they're releasing the social media ban, I think this week, maybe next week.
5 days away.
Yeah, so next Friday.
Pro or against? Thoughts?
Against.
You're against it. Interesting.
I think that we won't get into it in too much detail here, but
yes, we can.
No, we don't have the time. I just think maybe we do, but I think that there's a lot of put it this way, because it's being released like this, now there is the onus to prove that you're over 16. And there's going to be so much for all the people that are coming through.
Yeah.
The only way that that's going to happen is with the digital ID. And if they don't do the digital ID, I'm against it because I've seen things go wrong with tech rollouts from government. And if they do the digital ID in the wrong way, not using tech that we know could really work to preserve privacy, it's a very dangerous game. So it could lead to bad outcomes from something that they meant to be good.
So I agree with that. But for me, it's like the lesser of two evils. It's like, I completely agree with that, but they're already giving their information over to Facebook and these other businesses. So you're putting now you're pulling now that age information away from the social media tools and into a trusted source. Yes, it can still go wrong, but it is going to be worse the other way around.
Yeah,
that's the way.
Because I get it from a psychological perspective, influencing, young adults, young children, and having access to all that information. So I don't think anyone agrees with the intent of it. There then does need to be something done about it. But I share the risk as well that if
Trust the government.
but I feel like, okay, there's going to be a ban. I'm under 16. I'm just going to find another way to get around it. And it drives it underground.
Bans lead to, underground behavior that could actually create more nefarious outcomes because it's not being seen in business. So that's my overall thing. I think that they're
into unmonitored systems, right?
Yeah. I think it was just
my issue is I think they've rushed the outcome too much, and they haven't.
They went too hard the one way.
Properly thought about integrating what needs to be done in order to make sure it's properly secure. They've just done blanket bans, and then, like you said, what's the solution for the underground situation? Like you said, with the policies around AI, what are the assurances to everyone that the data that they're capturing is going to be
exactly, and that's kind of what the EU AI Act is trying to kind of incorporate, because
if it's coming out after this government policy, it means one is like
a bit late.
We'll roll that back out later.
But in terms of like the development and the deployment of systems, like, because in the EU AI Act, every IT developer, software developer has to categorize the type of system and give it a risk rating. If it's got high impact or low impact. But anything that's taking personal information, for example, then it's going to be a high impact if that information gets found.
All of them would just have all these high impact.
Well, I mean, it encourages software developers to data minimize. So if they don't need to, if the product or the service or the system doesn't need personal information to operate, then don't collect it. So it's kind of a bit of encouragement. It's now coming to fruition in the next year or two that because regulation's been in play over a year now, but there's been kind of a lead time before fines are implemented. So it's giving companies about 3 years to get these processes in place.
Coming back to, I mean, not coming back to talk about it, but more referencing the this policy that they're bringing for underage people 16 using social media. The risk we just spoke about was, what happens with the data? Is it at risk? When you look overseas, talking about this EU AI Act, the conversation I often hear and seen proven time and time again is that these companies in EU are so many leagues ahead when it comes to data management, when it comes to policy, because of things like GDPR being for quite so long. And to an extent the States, but then you look at Australia, we are so far behind in our policies, in our understanding of data security. I've seen businesses time and time again get hacked. Optus and even some of the health organizations more recently. What do we see are the chances of us getting it right and trying to catch up with all the other countries to be in a place where we go, cool, we are there with AI data security?
I mean, regulations always have important requirements. Law is kind of lagging. That's always the way that it's been. It's progressing and it's slow, but it's reactionary, right? Democratic law takes time. Right. It's not a perfect model, but it's the safest approach. The chance of Australia catching up, I think it's just a necessity. It's almost not a question. They'll have to, because in some shape or form in the next few years, a EU AI Act style regulation will be coming into Australia. It's voluntary AI safety standards at the moment, where organizations can
voluntary,
but it is voluntary, but voluntary always comes before mandatory, right? So it's leading towards that. And
except in the case of the YouTube ban.
Yeah.
We didn't voluntary. The mandatory.
Yeah.
Oh yes, you got the mandatory.
Well, we're not the only
Of course.
country. Everyone's rolling it out now.
Of course,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean,
it's,
Digital Nexus has to abide by these, right?
oh no, YouTube will do that. We don't do anything.
But the the guardrails that are put in place, is about safety, responsibility as well. You know, it's AI responsible, kind of ethics, but it's giving the guardrails for and the guidelines for organizations to follow, much as they do in the EU. It's about categorizing the intent of the tool, the data you're going to collect, and the responsibility that they have.
And if they
The challenge is, sorry.
I was just going to say, if they do that correctly and keep the data well and
Yep.
don't keep unnecessary stuff, then it should be okay, right?
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, but as we found, there's been a lot of data breach, which is a catalyst in a way to for companies to take a deeper look at their systems and their gaps and inefficiencies. And that's again when we come in and help them get to a certain standard of an understanding of their data, where it is, the sensitive data, how it's used, how it's transferred, and how it's accessed as well. You know, that was what I was talking about before. Of like, dashboards are great, just make sure it's not easily downloadable, and can leave the organization.
Yeah.
But going back to data discovery platforms, it's not as simple as just plugging in that system, because it won't know where to look. So we help companies look at their classification, their labels and their tagging, so they know what level or how to handle sensitive information. And then that's when tech systems can come in, because it knows what it's looking for.
Perfect.
So we help give them the steps. We help them get up to a standard so they can plug in these brilliant systems.
Brilliant. How are we with the cameras and stuff?
Camera's good. We're hitting on time, so I'm very conscious that we've been here for a while.
No, it's good.
Coming to a close. We love to do a little a quick fire. Is there any other questions you want to ask?
No.
We love to do a bit of a quick fire closing out
Sure.
set of questions. But before we get into that, obviously LogiQ or Logic is one of the organizations that you have been working with.
Transform Logic. Again.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Transform Logic has been one of those organizations that you've been working to for quite a lot recently. It is heavily supporting organizations around data sovereignty, security, and most recently AI and how that plays a role in it. Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, sure.
What they're doing, and I guess
Yeah.
how people get in touch with it and how you guys can further support them.
Yeah, absolutely. Transform Logic, we look at information governance. We're boutique. We partner with our clients to look at how their information and data is stored.
Solving all those things those problems that we just talked about.
Exactly. Everything we've just talked about. It's about, helping our clients get to a stage where they're confident they know where the data is, and where their sensitive data is. We do a lot of data leakage prevention, and that is everything we've just talked about. Giving them, looking at their policies, making sure they're up to scratch, understanding how data flows through their organization, and giving them recommendations of getting up to that standard. So, one, they're mitigating risk. They obviously want to remove risk and reduce it as much as possible from an operational perspective, but also helping them comply with privacy regulations, Australian privacy principles. But
most recently helping with how they can integrate these new EU AI acts.
It's preparation, right? And as mentioned, Australia is lagging behind in terms of that, and we want to help them prepare and get them up to that stage. But time is now, right? It's just a matter of time. Could be 1 year, could be a couple of years, but it is going to change.
Better to prepare now.
Yeah, exactly. Preparation is the key, right, of all good plans. But it's mitigating the risks, but it's avoiding those costly penalties, because all of the regulators, ASIC, APRA, are monitoring these organizations. So we help them, get them up to standard and identify those gaps, identify those weaknesses. This is what you need to do. But we're experts in, in the governance side, and almost every engagement we have now is like, we want to get into AI. We want a tool. We just want to give it all this information and give us strategic outcomes and, where our strategy should be going. And there was like, okay, but you need to get your data sorted. What's the first step of AI governance? Get your data, organized and classified and tagged, and then you can build from there. So I've used the tagline of, how can AI governance not be a handbrake and be an accelerator to AI? And that's it. It's data preparation.
I love it.
Once you're aware of your data, it's secure, it's categorized, it's tagged, then you can start innovating,
safely,
securely, and confidently. Yeah. I think that's the key part.
Got a few quotes here. There's like this one that we spoke about earlier from Fei Li, which is, there's nothing artificial about AI. It's inspired by people, created by people, and impacts people.
Yeah.
And like fundamentally, the things that your business does is prepares these business to be able to put the securities in place so that when they do integrate and utilize AI, it is ready for the people in the best way possible.
Yeah, exactly. We also want to be their partner as well, because like we wouldn't be doing our job if we said, here's recommendation report, see you later, good luck. We partner with them. So our first engagement meeting with stakeholders, they're like, okay, we need to get this done. And it's like, okay, great, but what's your organizational goals? What's your objectives? And what are your values? Like, how is this going to benefit your organization, and how is it supporting your, top level strategic priorities? And then we can say, right, we'll tie everything back to that. So the data and the risk management, the operation guys will go, right, this is it. And, exec level, this is how it's going to, support the company going forward.
Yeah. Nice.
So we're a strategic partner as well.
Quick fire round.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
All right. What's keeping you up at night?
What's keeping me up?
In relation to AI.
I think it's leakage.
Yeah.
Yeah, leakage and unknown black box. We don't fully understand kind of how that information's being used, collected, shared externally as well. So yeah, that's a bit. Whatever you put into ChatGPT or the documents you're putting in, I want to make it as safe as possible.
It's good. And you've got a background in technology and you did some developing in your early years. What are the things you're kind of tinkering with right now?
So as I mentioned before, as digital product manager in HSBC for a while, where we were building UIs. So we've had a couple of conversations about user experience. I have that experience as well, so I see the user, not just data.
Yep.
So I'm not quite fully matrix. I bring in the human elements.
Ones and zeros.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm tinkering with vibe coding, building platforms, building tools, but looking at problems that can be solved with tech. Advisory and policy is deadly important. But it's at the end of the day, it's a piece of paper. It's like, how do we adopt? How do we engage? And how do we bring companies and people? Like 80% of the challenge is people. What's your most risky asset in your company? It's your staff.
And when we touched on transformation before, and I was like, exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest risk in that is people. It's culture. It's like the understanding and education surrounding it. You can't just blanket integrate this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to solve the problem overnight. It is a journey.
Correct. So I'm tinkering with things that people haven't thought about yet. Security monitoring of data, identifying data, capturing things before they go out.
So you're the guy trying to hack into them.
Yeah. No hacking. All secure, but
Ed,
that type of thing.
Thank you very much for having
thank you for having me, guys.
It was an absolute pleasure. An excellent conversation. Really aligned with what we're trying to strive for, which is that expert in the loop. The expert in the loop. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you Yeah,
Check
thanks for everyone.
out Transform Logic.
Yeah.
Just like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Excellent. And just a comment to say thank you for having me and loving what you guys are doing. Just keep, keep keeping on, because I'm watching most of them, and you've got some great conversations, and
More coming.
this is how we get progress, right?
Exactly.
Discussions
This is it.
and cross disciplines.
That's it. Innovate,
learn.
keep moving, keep tinkering, keep breaking things. See you next time.
See you later, guys.